So we're now on episode 7.
We are.
I don't remember if I told you this, but there was actually, when we were doing research on how to make podcasts, I found that most podcasts stop around episode 7. Like they go to 7 episodes and then they're done.
Oh no.
So I don't mean to jinx us, but I guess you'll maybe see us in episode 8. Tune in 2 weeks to find out.
We're going to make it to episode 8. We already have stuff lined up for it.
True.
We already have a plan for it.
Speaking of that, well, before we get into that,
Hi,
we should
everybody.
probably introduce ourselves.
Hi, everybody. I'm Logan Renquist.
And I'm Kendall Renquist.
And we're married.
We are.
For 5 months now.
And this is Tales of Plenty.
Our podcast.
This is a podcast where we tell each other stories, and they're always based on a theme, and we haven't shared those stories with each other yet until right now.
Right now.
And do you want to get into what our theme is for this one and for the next one?
Sure. So today's theme, maybe don't listen at nighttime because
It's spooky.
Spooky Halloween. In the vein of it's October, spooky season, we are doing ghost stories.
For this episode, yeah.
Ooh. Yes, for just this one. And for the next one, we are going to attempt to go on a ghost tour because Austin has some haunted places.
Our own personal ghost tour.
Yes.
We're cheap.
You can pay for a ghost tour. However, with COVID, and we don't want to pay like $30 a head to take a ghost tour, I'm like,
Yeah, let's just blame it on COVID.
Yeah.
Not that we're cheap skates.
I mean, needs must, right? Yeah, I thought we could. And plus, we can do whatever we want then, too. We don't have to be stuck to an itinerary.
Right.
So
Because
anyway.
we're going to pick out like specific locations.
Yeah. So we're going to do a little research beforehand and most likely not tell the other one about it. Kendall will probably be driving, so I'll have to give you the address, but I won't like tell you the story. Yeah.
Yeah. At the end of this episode, so as Logan mentioned, we're doing ghost stories.
Ooh.
And at the end of this episode, we have a little surprise for you.
Little surprise.
So stay tuned in and hope you continue to listen. So you want to start it off?
Sure. My ghost story is a little bit urban legend, but a little bit ghost story at the same time. And I thought it was fitting because I think the movie just came out about it last month.
Was a movie on this.
Not in theaters. I think it went straight to streaming because of, the Rona. But I did see it advertised. And I just Googled it and I saw it said released and it said straight to streaming. So I don't know where you can find it, but I can find out at the end of the show.
Okay. I won't ask the name because that'll ruin the whole build up.
I'm about to tell you.
Yeah. That'll bury the lead. That's what the phrase I was thinking.
I'm burying the lead. Okay. Well, before I get into what my story actually is, I wanted to give you a little historical background on ghost stories. Just because I found this in a lovely history.com article.
Before you do, I just want to say I do appreciate that you do this a lot with our themes.
Do what?
It's kind of nice, to me at least. You not only go and find a story on a theme, but you like to also dig into the kind of backstory of the theme itself.
Yeah.
So I kind of like that. It gives some more context.
Well, thanks. Well, I like history and also TBH, to be honest. I found just a really good article when I was looking and from history.com. So in the 1st century AD, the great Roman author and statesman Pliny the Younger recorded one of the first notable ghost stories in his letters, which became famous for their vivid account of life during the heyday of the Roman Empire. So obviously ghost stories go back many, many centuries and cultures, religions. The Egyptians have some, but I'm talking about like the first kind of recorded quote unquote ghost story of like seeing an apparition kind of thing. So Pliny reported that the specter, another word for ghost, of an old man he saw this old man with a beard with rattling chains on his arms that was haunting his house in Athens. The Greek writer Lucian and Pliny's fellow Roman Plautus also wrote memorable ghost stories. And centuries later, in 856 AD, the first poltergeist was reported at a farmhouse in Germany. The poltergeist tormented the family living there by throwing stones, starting fires, and other things inside the home. So that's kind of, I mean, obviously it goes on forever after that. And I can't give you a full dissertation about it because it was a great article and it just kept going. So I will stop there. But those were kind of the first recorded ghost stories.
Interesting.
So now I'm going to tell you about the infamous Wailing Woman, or La Llorona.
La Llorona.
Yes.
Okay.
So the movie that did just come out, I believe, is self-entitled La Llorona. It looked pretty good. The story that I got this part from was from historytoday.com, which was a fantastic, it seemed almost like a professorial, paper. It seemed very historically researched. So it starts off with a Mexican woman, and I'm sorry if I mispronounce this. I only know very basic Spanish, so my pronunciations might not be correct. So
you're starting to learn a little bit more.
I learn a little bit. I learn a little bit.
I learn a little bit.
Great sign. I can
doing awesome.
I can pretty much only say I ate the apple, I drink water, and I'm a woman. That's pretty much all I got.
You know the most important one too.
Where's the bathroom?
Where's the library?
That's true. That's very true.
¿Dónde está la biblioteca?
Yeah, that's such an important one because as we know, life happens at the library. And people still definitely use them today.
I know my brother's favorite, which is lavate las manos.
What, raise your hands?
No, that means wash your hands.
Oh, wash your hands.
It's a quote from American Dad, though.
Oh, okay. Obviously, my Spanish isn't great because I mistook raising and washing. Anyway, so a Mexican woman, Juana Lieja, attempted to kill her 7 children by throwing them in the Buffalo Bayou in Houston, Texas in 1986. The victim of domestic violence, she was apparently trying to end her suffering and that of her children, 2 of whom died. During an interview, Lieja declared that she was La Llorona. Ooh. So, taking it way back, La Llorona is a legendary figure with various incarnations, usually translated into English as the Wailing Woman. She's often presented as a banshee type, or an apparition of a woman dressed in white, often found by lakes or rivers, sometimes at crossroads, who cries or screams in the night for her lost children, whom she has killed, in most translations of the story. The crime is sometimes carried out with a knife or a dagger, but very often the children have been drowned. Her crime is usually committed in a fit of madness after having found out about an unfaithful lover or husband who leaves her to marry a woman of higher status. After realizing what she has done, she usually kills herself. She's often described as a lost soul doomed to wander the earth forever. To some, in the Mexican and Spanish cultures, she's a boogie woman used by parents to scare children into good behavior. And in my research, that was a pretty popular theme. In an article that I was reading, it was about La Llorona, the movie. This author had interviewed some people on set of Latino or Latina heritage saying, what do you know about the story of La Llorona? What were you told growing up? And a lot of times, at least these people kind of surveyed by this woman who worked on the movie, they said, growing up, grandma would always tell me, don't go out after dark because La Llorona would be out there and eat me and all that stuff. So it seems like in a lot of Mexican and Spanish culture, it was used as a scare tactic.
Right.
But the origins of the legend are uncertain, but it's presented as having pre-Hispanic roots. La Llorona is thought to be one of the 10 omens foretelling the conquest of Mexico, and she's also been linked to Aztec goddesses. So it's starting to get a little bit into, did this originate in a mythology story. Like, so that's kind of where this article was kind of tracing it back to. Examples of her seen throughout history, such as the Florentine Codex, which was completed during the 16th century. She's also described as an omen of war. And there was another codex later by Diego Duran, and details her as the ugliest and dirtiest thing that one could imagine. Her face was so black and covered with filth that she looked like something straight out of hell.
Well, that's not very nice.
I mean, maybe she was just having a bad hair day. But anyway, so this article found, examples of that, and they're thinking maybe this was an example of how La Llorona got started, potentially. So that's why I kind of thought it was a little bit legend, but she is definitely a ghost.
Yeah.
In these accounts. That article goes on for a really long time. If you're interested in the deep backstory of it, it was history.com. I can find the author and all of that good stuff. But I did look for kind of like a first person account, and all of them were pretty short, but I really liked this one. It was a Reddit sub theory of,
that's the thing we have to do at some point.
We do. Yes. But this thread was called "Don't Look for Her, Pretend You Never Saw Her," La Llorona. And so this particular account was, I mean, I don't know if this is true or not. Reddit is sometimes a forum for creative writers. Mm-hmm. Reddit subtheories are often really interesting to read just because you don't know whether it's fact or fiction. So that's why I wanted to tell you this one. This is by user AZ Redbird. So all of this is, I'm quoting from them. I'm just going to read it. So
yeah.
The story goes something like this. There was a beautiful lady in old Mexico. She was not from a rich family, and she became the object of a Mexican nobleman's affections. They fell in love, in secret got married, and not long after she became pregnant with twins. The father of this nobleman was so enraged that his bloodline was tainted with the blood of a commoner that he tried to force the local bishop to grant a divorce to disillusion the marriage. The bishop refused because they were very Catholic at this time, and the father eventually allowed her to move into the house, probably after a couple of months after them wearing him down, allowed her to move into the house. She gave birth to twins, one boy and one girl. A year later, the nobleman that she married was called off to war. He didn't return. He was killed in battle. The father became reclusive, hardly talking or eating. He grew to hate the children that would now inherit everything, and he grew to hate the commoner that his son married, thinking that she was marrying into his family and waiting for him to die to take everything. So he is just jaded with grief. He ordered his men to take the children to the nearest river and drown them, and let their bodies be taken by the current at night so that there would be no proof. The children were taken in the middle of the night without a sound. The mother was kicked out of the house the next day and later accused of killing the children. The townsfolk eventually drowned the broken-hearted woman. She didn't put up a fight because she had already died inside. Days later, the nobleman and his men were found dead in his own house. That was the father.
Right.
Just to clarify. Right. So sightings started happening of a beautiful woman dressed in black roaming the streets at night crying, looking for her children. If you saw her and you were a child, she would stop, grab you, and take you to the river where you would be drowned. So that was the beginning of the origin story that this Reddit sub-user, or the Reddit sub-theory, I don't know the terms.
Subreddit theories.
The subreddit theories. Freaking there's a sub involved. I don't know. That's what the user wanted to tell at the beginning. I edited a couple things out just because it was, it didn't really go along with the story. But so that was the origin story that they had heard.
And what was the Reddit user for that?
That was called AZ Redbird, but I'm not quite finished yet.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's okay. I was running with my dog as usual. I was listening to my iPod and tracking my mileage. I started to see something in the distance about a quarter mile away. It looked like a person under one of the street lamps. As I got closer, I began to notice that this person wasn't moving, just a silhouette under the light. The closer I got, the silhouette started to take shape. I looked at her. I could tell it was a woman. Something about her deeply unsettled me. I couldn't see her face. Her hair was long and black. It was covering her face entirely. She looked like she was wearing a short black dress, which was odd because it was 60 degrees that night. I guess they're out in like the desert. I think it said Phoenix at the beginning of this story. So that would be very cold to people in Phoenix. To people in Texas, it sounds great. So she was tall, taller than I had first estimated. She seemed thin, and her arms and legs seemed to be a tad too long for her body. She was just standing there under the streetlight. I took my headphones out because I was going to ask her if she was all right. Before I could ask, my ears were filled with very fast Spanish being spoken in a whisper. It was raspy. The voice filled my head. And let me just sidebar and say, this is excellent writing or absolutely a horrifying experience because I swear, there is nothing more terrifying like in a movie than very fast talking in a whisper. It could be in English or it could be in another language, but I'm not going to do it because I don't want to scare our listeners. But I know for a fact there's nothing scarier than very, very fast speaking in another language. She raised one long arm at me and extended her index finger. It looked more like a long tree root than a finger.
I'm getting chills.
That's when I started to hear the crying. It started off as a wail, then grew into a full scream. I turned tail and ran as fast as I could down the main road. When I looked back, she was gone. The author runs and runs, and so they almost get home. I happened to look down a cul-de-sac that had one light at the end. And yes, she was there. Her silhouette as clear as day. She had not only followed me and kept pace with me, but she had also beaten me to my neighborhood. My dog pulled on its leash. We made it to my front doorstep, and I opened the door, ran in, and slammed it. The next morning, I woke up and discovered that somehow I had acquired a large scratch that ran down my whole bicep. It would eventually scar. I told my neighbor about what happened. He said this, "I know what that was. The best advice I can give you is to leave her alone. She marked you, and she will leave you alone because she marks the ones she doesn't like and takes the ones she does." So the thread goes on a little bit longer just to describe more of the neighbor, and they find like some letters. And so I encourage you guys to go check out the rest of that story. But I wanted to end it there just because.
Chills.
I enjoyed the telling of that particular experience. So are you scared yet?
Yes, I am scared. Boy, we should stop recording these late at night because I'm going to have nightmares tomorrow. Well, that was spooky.
Thank you.
Should I do my story?
Yes. What is your ghost story, honey?
So this one, it kind of talks a little bit. It's not, I guess it's sort of ghosty, but it's kind of at the end. I get into more of the history, I guess, behind it. I think you'll like this. It's a true crime story. Like, this really happened.
I'm excited. I love true crime. Any of my fellow true crime lovers out there, we will be doing a true crime episode. And let me just put out a call real quick. If you have any local murders in your hometown, or you know of any that have happened, like to you or to your relatives' sphere of influence, please write us and let us know so we can hold on to that for our true crime episode.
Yeah, local true crime would be
local,
very fun
please.
Mm-hmm. I know that's a massive topic.
Massive topic.
But it'd be fun to do an episode on that.
Definitely.
I might have to make it multiple parts because it's just such a massive topic.
Definitely.
So I got my sources for my story from Wikipedia, duh,
Yeah.
and roadtrippers.com.
Okay.
Throwing in a curveball this time.
Roadtrippers.com. Yes.
So this is called, I'm not going to give away the entire title because it kind of, again, buries the lead. But this covers the Villisca Murders. So the Moore family lived in, I'm always bad at butchering names. It's either Villisca or Villisca. They were a pretty affluent and well-known family of 6. The parents, Josiah B., who was 43, and Sarah Montgomery Moore, the mother/wife, was 39. And there were 4 children, Herman Montgomery, who was 11, Mary Catherine, who was 10, and Arthur Boyd, 7, and Paul Vernon, who was 5. So they had 4 kids.
Those just sound like such big names for such small children.
Paul, Arthur, Mary, and Herman.
Herman. This is my... It's like a baby, like you're holding your baby. This is my baby. His name is Herman.
Yeah.
Melville.
It was big names for little kids.
So funny.
On June 9th of 1912, their daughter... 1912. Just want to make sure you pick that up.
1912. Got it.
Their daughter, Mary Catherine, invited 2 friends over to spend the night. Those friends' names were Ina May and Lena Gertrude Stillinger.
Gertrude.
Ina was 8 years old and Lena was 12 years old.
Wait, are they related? Ina and Lena?
No. It's weird, but
just coincidence.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, just a coincidence.
Sorry.
It was kind of weird rhyme. That evening, the family and their 2 daughters' friends all attended the Presbyterian Church to participate in the Children's Day program organized by Sarah, the mother, who kind of helped put that on for the town. Once it was over, around 9:30 p.m., the family and friends walked back home to the Moore's house and got there around 10 p.m. The next morning, Mary Peckham, the Moore's neighbor, was concerned because no one had come out of the house to do their daily chores. She hadn't seen anyone yet, and that was very atypical because they lived in kind of a small town, so, there's chores around the house. So she decided to go check on them. And when she got there, she tried to open the door, but the door was locked, and no responses came when she called out to them to try to see what's going on. So this concerned her, of course. And she decided to call Josiah's brother, Ross Moore, to come over as he had a spare key and could get into the house. Eventually, Ross makes his way over, and he unlocks the door and walks in. And the house is silent. And he continues to go through the house, and he walks into the guest room to find the friends, Ina and Lena, bludgeoned to death.
Ooh.
Ross immediately calls out to Mary and calls for Hank Horton, who was the primary peace officer in Villisca.
Hank or Frank?
Hank.
Hank!
He went by Hank.
Hank.
I think his real name was Henry, if I remember. Henry Horton.
Hankery.
Henry Horton. Here's a who.
Aww. Not Hankery?
No, not Hankery.
All right.
Hank searched the rest of the house and discovered everyone in the house was bludgeoned to death by Josiah's axe.
Ooh.
Upon further investigation, they found 2 cigarettes were in the attic, which suggested the killer or killers waited in the attic until everyone in the house was asleep. The killers started in the main bedroom, murdering Josiah with the blade of the axe. His face became so smashed that they couldn't find his eyes.
No!
Yeah. They relentlessly attacked his face.
Oh my
killed him.
gosh.
And to the point where he was unrecognizable and they couldn't even find parts of his face.
What a gruesome detail.
Yeah, it was horrendous. And another interesting / gruesome fact was he's the only one that they used the blade of the axe on. Everyone else, they used the blunt end of the axe to kill.
Oh.
So his wife, who was sleeping next to him, as well as all the children, were not killed by the blade. They were killed by the blunt side of it.
Oh.
So they used the blunt end of the axe to kill the rest of the family. After they dispatched the parents, they went on to murder the children before coming back to inflict more damage on the parents, knocking over a shoe that had filled with blood in the process.
Ugh.
And that's how they knew they came back.
So like the blood had like congealed in the shoe.
Right.
And oh my gosh.
They had murdered the parents. Blood started pouring in the shoe. They went off to kill the kids. Then they came back to desecrate the bodies even further.
Okay.
And knocked over a shoe that had filled with blood by the time they came back.
Okay.
To do even more damage.
I wonder if they had any like enemies? Like who would do something so malicious?
I think I said earlier, but they were, according to the articles I read, like they were well-known, popular family. And were affluent and active in their community. So to this day, no one actually knows who the murderer is.
No.
It's an unsolved crime.
Oh.
There were a lot of suspects that came out of the investigation, including Reverend George Kelly, who was actually tried twice. Reverend. The first resulted in a hung jury, and the second ended in an acquittal.
Wait, but was it a hanging Chad?
It was a hanging Chad. I gotta know. It all came down to a hanging Chad. And a pregnant Chad, actually.
Oh my gosh.
We should probably explain what that even means.
I'm sure most people know, but it was during the Bush Gore election. There was some problems with like the vote ballots and like how they were punched and stuff. And I was telling Kendall about this yesterday. It was literally yesterday. And I was like, yeah, it was called a hanging Chad. And he was just like doubled over with laughter. And I'm like, no, it's a thing. I swear. And so I Googled it, and maybe it was like the Truly that we had at the time. Maybe it was just late, but reading the Wikipedia.
Maybe it was just really funny.
Reading that Wikipedia article for hanging Chad was the funniest thing I have read in a long time.
There are apparently lots of different versions of Chad.
Chad being
or Chads, if you go plural.
True. There can be singular or plural of Chad. And those are little pieces of paper that are cut out from like the ballot.
Yeah.
And
the best part of that article was a caption of an image that said pouring Chads at the computer like science museum.
Pouring a jar full of Chad.
Pouring a jar full of Chads.
Something stupid like that. And then there was, fat Chad, pregnant Chad.
Try Chad.
Swinging Chad. Oh my gosh.
Okay. So back to the story. I think, I didn't write this down. I forgot to. But there was like 6 or 7 different suspects. But the only one that ever got tried, it sounds like, was this reverend.
Wow.
Who had come into town that day and left early the next night. Morning.
Suspicious.
Yeah. So, I mean, that raised suspicion. He was also apparently, he had some mental problems as well.
Oh.
So at one point he had actually like even confessed to the crime, but then recanted it. But no one really believed him because he was known for having mental problems. So
he was in the wrong profession, and he definitely should have sought mental help.
Yeah. So if I remember correctly, at some point they actually like took him to a mental facility.
Okay.
Although, 1912 mental facilities was
not good.
Yeah.
True.
So,
however, but if he was the murderer, then.
Yeah. But I mean, they were tried both times, and they don't know if he really did it or not, and they still don't know. People have investigated this. No one really knows who did it.
Those poor people.
Yeah. So since the murders at the Moore's family house, it's been lived in for many years after that.
Okay. They didn't just tear that sucker down?
No, it still exists today.
No.
Yeah.
No.
It's not torn down. It still exists.
No.
Yes.
Don't go there.
It's been lived in by several people, and just about every ghostly phenomena that you could think of has been reported at this place.
Yeah, no freaking way. Of course.
There's a horrific murder there, so of course you'd expect every possible strange phenomena to happen there as well.
Bad juju. Hello?
There's been disembodied footsteps walking through the house. People waking up to see someone swinging an axe wildly at the foot of their bed, which is probably the scariest one that I've seen. Things moving around in the house randomly, voices and apparitions, shadows that shouldn't be there,
You know,
screams, pretty much anything you think of has been reported at this house. It's not actually owned by any particular person now.
Because no one wants to own that piece of haunted.
I think it's technically owned by a person, but they do tours there now. It was scheduled to be destroyed, but then someone in the town wanted to keep it because they considered it a historical landmark of the town. So they converted it into a museum, essentially. So you can do tours there.
Do you think it's owned by the town then?
I think it was owned privately. I forget it was a woman, but I'm forgetting her name.
Okay. How'd you like to see that on your bank statement? You own the haunted house.
And you can even do overnight stays at the house.
No.
So it's a popular attraction for people that like going on ghost hunts and ghost tours and things like that. They'll stay overnight.
Okay, can we stop capitalizing on these poor people's murder? Please?
Well, speaking of capitalizing, this has actually been a pretty widely documented house. There's lots of like ghost facer type TV shows.
You're gonna have to explain that. I don't think everyone watches.
Ghost facer.
I don't think
That's
everyone
a
watches
Supernatural
Supernatural.
reference.
Yeah.
Ghost. What's like a real TV show version of that?
You were gonna sing it again and then you stopped.
I was about to say Ghostbusters, but that's not Ghostbusters.
It's like a paranormal investigator.
Yeah.
But it's like a spoof.
Yeah. So there's like several TV shows that have done episodes that are TV shows that do that kind of paranormal activity stuff.
Yeah.
That they've done episodes on this house. There's also lots of other podcasts that have done episodes on this house. A lot of ones that revolve around kind of spooky, creepy stuff. Or even some historical podcasts have done episodes on this. So kind of like how you had your story, I also encourage you to check some of those things out. You can find a big list of them on the Wikipedia page in the pop culture section of it.
Yeah.
So if you want to learn more about the story, I definitely encourage you to check those other podcasts and those TV shows out.
So I bet a lot of people just like captured stuff on film and on audio, I'm sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, some people in the town have said that they have also seen creepy stuff. Some other people in town have also said that like kids like to kind of, like creep around the house and tap on the glass when they know people are staying over to kind of like, ooh, spooky.
Because kids
freak them out.
suck. No,
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. We love children, except for when they do stuff like that.
But yeah, so that was my story.
That was
And
amazing.
We're 40 minutes in. So do you want to tell our mini surprise, I guess?
Yes. So I'm very excited to talk about this. So my uncle, I had a call with him. His name is Dave, and I will refer to him as Uncle Dave, I'm sure. I had a phone call with him just the other day, and he has a personal ghost story, and he very kindly said that we could share it on the podcast.
Yeah.
So we had a very lovely chat with him and my aunt. And so we would now like to retell his personal ghost story. to you. So I hope you all enjoy. So it was the middle of 1966 in South Bend, Indiana, out in the country. He recalls it's kind of near Highway 23, if anybody is from the Indiana area. And he also recalled that it was at the intersection, not the intersection, but on Barton Street and Grape Street. So maybe around those two streets, maybe around an intersection. He purchased this home from a friend of his then wife's parents. And so the house was a little 2-bedroom, 1-story, no basement. He went on to describe the home a little bit with an eat-in kitchen. They had 2 children. One was a baby at the time. I think we'll talk about him a little bit. So the baby's name was Todd. They were enjoying the home, began fixing up the house, kind of started to get settled in a little bit. He went on to say that's when we noticed cupboard doors in their kitchen would be opened when they were gone. So they would leave the house to shop or go see a movie or something, come back, and some cabinets in their kitchen would be open. And he went on to say, maybe it's just because we had a baby and we're tired, didn't remember opening them, closing them. We thought the other one was doing it, on accident. So we just kind of closed them and didn't think anything of it. Time went by and they begin to notice salt and pepper shakers move from the counter to the stove. Like they would be on the side of the counter and then they would move to the middle of the stove, which was a little bit odd. And again, they just thought maybe that you'd picked it up when you were cleaning the kitchen, or you had to scoot them over to set the groceries down or something. And they didn't really think anything of it again. But also that was when they would leave the house for a period of time and then return. So it never happened overnight either. It was never like they went to bed and then the things would happen. It was always when during the day or evening they would go out and then come back. These things happened several times and they just thought it was sleep deprivation, that kind of thing, until they noticed that an iron that they had set kind of on the stove would then be put on the counter, which they knew they wouldn't have done that because that is a fire hazard, first of all, and they just know that was not in their normal, even sleep deprivation brains. They knew that would not be an action that they would take. I asked him when they had started to suspect a ghost, and he said it was at this time. The iron was...
It was just such an unusual thing.
Such an unusual action.
Yeah. Like he said he wouldn't have put, or she wouldn't have put the iron on the counter. It would have stayed on the stove.
Yeah. So the things are kind of still moving around. The cupboards are still opening. The salt and pepper shakers are still moving around. They checked the house for signs of an intruder, and doors, windows were locked, and it didn't seem like there was an intruder or like a neighborhood prankster or something. They later said that someone told them that they should consider ghosts more seriously. And he didn't say who it was. It could have been a neighbor. But maybe they should start taking, maybe this is a ghost. Maybe you should consider this. There was a little bit of a lull in activity. And he went on to describe this one instance. He walked through the living room and it was a a normal temperature in the home until he took a few steps in and you could feel a chill in this one area. It only...
A significant temperature
drop. Significant temperature drop. Not he described it not as a freezer, but like you had left the refrigerator door open. So chilly. It was a distinct chill in the air. And it only lasted for about 3 feet in the house. And it wasn't near a window. It wasn't near a door. It was just kind of in a room. And that was very unusual. He went on to say that their baby Todd would wake up and cry. And of course they would walk in his room. And a couple times they would feel the cool air in there. It was not by the window as you would expect. In Indiana, it does get very cold. However, that cool air was not coming from the window, wasn't coming from the door. It was in the baby's nursery room.
Yeah. They felt the chill in a very unusual place in the room.
Right.
Where you would not expect there to be a chill.
Right. So... one day they come home and the shakers had moved and the cupboards had opened. Both of those occurred at the same time, which before it had only been one or the other. And now, so both of them are happening. So they decide to sit on the couch and kind of just try to talk to it. They don't think it's malevolent in any way or malicious. Because nothing has been done to hurt them in any way, they just decide, like, maybe if we just talk to it, maybe it'll go away. So they sit on the couch as if they're having a conversation, and they say, "We know you're here. We feel your presence, and we definitely are seeing the signals that you're leaving for us. And we know you're friendly, but we want to tell you that you're scaring us. And we have small children and we're afraid. We feel your presence, but we don't want to. You're fine to stay. You're okay to stay here, but we would just like to not know your presence anymore." So they were very nice to it, but talked to it for a little while and asked it to not continue its activity. It's welcome to stay. Don't mess with us anymore, kind of thing. So after that, nothing happened. It all stopped after that conversation. So Uncle Dave does believe in ghosts after that happened. Before he was a skeptic, didn't really believe in that. But after having some definitive proof happen to his family, he believes in ghosts. Of course, doesn't seek them out, but does believe in them. They stayed there until the end of 1967. So shortly after those occurrences had happened, they got an opportunity to move to Arizona. So they did not stay in that home much longer. I think you said maybe... It
was about a year and a half.
Yeah, that they had stayed there total.
Yeah.
And then maybe in like 6 months they had
those problems.
Had those problems and then moved.
I guess ghost or whatever they want to call it.
Yeah.
Happened.
And then they had that opportunity and then moved. So I asked him, did friends and family, did they believe you? Or like, did they just say you're sleep deprived with a new baby? And he said they would listen and be courteous, but they wouldn't really believe the entire story. They thought, family and friends thought maybe it was a stalker, a person in the neighborhood just trying to mess with them, get in their heads and stalking their family. But he had checked all of the entrances, all the entry points, access points, and there was no sign of an intrusion. And yeah, so it's kind of, if you're listening and whether you believe in ghosts or not, is your personal prerogative. But I think people are more apt to believe in ghosts if they have something like that happen to them. So it's just very interesting. And then just real quick, my aunt went on to tell a small story just about, it would have been her, let me think, it would have been her father-in-law. My uncle's father had passed away. This would be my grandfather. I was, I think, 3 at the time. And my aunt said after my grandfather's funeral, they had pulled up to my grandfather's home and were gonna, have a meal or something.
Yeah.
All sit down.
They had like gotten groceries or something like that.
Yeah. And we're gonna hang out at his home for a little bit. And she was the first out of the car and went into my grandfather's home. And she without a doubt says, I saw him walk in the backyard. They had these beautiful bay windows, many, many windows in their living room and in their kitchen. And she said, I saw him walk outside, like saw his figure passing through the windows. And I just thought that was so lovely. That was the day of his funeral. And so, some cultures say that ghosts of people who have just passed sometimes go to places where they're familiar to kind of say goodbye. Before
moving on.
Yeah, before moving on. And I have a lot of family members that have experiences like this, whether they call them ghosts or angels
or spirits
or just spirits, with no identification one way or the other. But she was very, very sure that she saw my grandfather.
Yeah, she said he just walked slowly across the yard and past all the windows.
Yeah.
Almost as if he was saying goodbye to the house and to his wife and family.
Which was really lovely. I thoroughly enjoyed her sharing that with me. So, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed my family's sort of personal story. Thank you guys for listening. We are on, I think, every channel.
Except Pandora.
Except Pandora. Pandora, hello.
Pandora, I don't know what the deal is. I've submitted several times. It says it takes like 2 months to get listed. I don't know.
Maybe
I'm still
like
trying.
Us.
I don't think they like us very much.
Like, I think our podcast,
we're on literally every single thing possible except Pandora.
I think our podcast is pretty good, and everyone else has picked us up, so I don't understand what the holdup is with Pandora. But anyway, hopefully you guys are enjoying the podcast, but you can like us on Facebook and Instagram. You can leave us reviews on any of the platforms that you listen to. And
it really helps grow our podcast. We're obviously just doing this all with our own money right now because we're just doing it as a hobby. So we're trying not to have ads and stuff in it because we're trying to mostly focus on our reach and get more listeners. So if you do like what we do, then please help us out. It'd be awesome if you can, like Logan said, give comments, reviews. By far the best thing is just share it with your friends and family too.
Yeah,
and
tell
let people
your
know
friends
about
and
it.
family. If they like stories and they like 2 goofy kids in Texas that you think that they might enjoy, please send us their way.
Yeah, because we don't really do a whole lot of like marketing or anything for our podcast. So just kind of relying on word of mouth. And if people like it, then please share us with people that you think would also enjoy our podcast.
Yeah, and we thank you so much for the support that we've had. I think we had 200 podcast downloads just the other day. 200. So thank you so much, everybody, for listening and enjoying so far.
Yeah.
Do we have time for a Wikipedia roulette? Or?
Yeah. Okay. I got one ready.
Okay, we have a Wikipedia roulette. We did. I was hoping that we would have enough time. So here we go, guys.
Yeah, we're just under an hour right now. So, all right. So the one I hit, I was kind of hoping to get a spooky, scary one, but I mean, this could kind of be spooky, scary in a weird way. Knee arthritis.
Ooh, knee arthritis.
Arthritis of the knee is typically a particularly debilitating form of arthritis. The knee may become affected by almost any form of arthritis.
Okay, let me just clarify that I'm not laughing at knee arthritis. I'm sure that is
It's very serious.
a very
issue.
serious thing and very painful. However, Wikipedia roulette is just whatever Kendall finds when he clicks on the random page generator of Wikipedia, and
then I'll just read like the first little bit. So there you go.
Thank you.
Wikipedia roulette delivered knee arthritis in this episode. I guess quick PSA, it is getting close to election time. So whether or not you are Democrat, Republican, Independent, Libertarian, Tea Party.
Oh, Whigs and Tories, if we're taking it back to 1776.
So anyway.
Yes.
We can end the podcast on that.
Okie doke.
I hope everyone has a wonderful couple weeks until our next episode.
Whoop whoop. Look out for more ghosty stuff.
Episode 8 coming at you. We're going to try to do some local spooky stuff in Austin, Texas.
Spooky stuff.
So stay tuned for that. That is the current plan. If it doesn't turn out, I am sorry, but that is our plan as of right now.
We'll probably tell you what went wrong and what we did to do
if
instead.
Isn't the theme that happens, we'll let you know why.
There's probably a reason.
So anyway, I am Kendall Runquist.
I am Logan Runquist.
This has been Tales of Plenty.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.